Mysteries of Foggy Albion Project. Universal Media Partnership presents Vladimir Shumko's film What the Stones Say. About 100 miles west of Scotland's major industrial city of Glasgow is a rather interesting village consisting of just one street, two small hotels, a small museum, an old church, a souvenir shop and a couple of cafes. At first glance nothing special, a few stone mounds, a few circles of standing stones. If you don't delve into the history, it's nothing special. And this village is called Kilmartin. Since the time mankind has existed, it has had different methods of presented information. One was passed down from generation to generation, the other common in public and household use. But there was information that people wanted to preserve and communicate both to others and to immortalize for future generations. How to immortalize something if everything around is so short-lived? And the stone came to the rescue. Yes, stone. After fire and water. It's still a very important part of human life. Stone. We decided to turn to the multitude of stones so that these silent witnesses of human history could tell us their secrets. Ahnabrek. It's a fascinating place. It is also about 100 miles from Glasgow. We have to walk a little way along this beautiful forest path to find ourselves at this huge stone not yet completely covered with grass. Yes, it's an amazing rock. I've come here many times. Literally photographed every meter, every drawing. I've been looking for something similar. And finally came to the conclusion that this is exactly what the ancient solar lunar calendars are. Pay attention to these photos. These are nothing but ancient calendars. We ask the question, why are there so many of them? So many calendars in one place? Let's notice why they are so different to such a degree. This big calendar, it has a complete division of months, weeks, and days. And some don't have as many divisions, but most importantly they have a line that connects them to other calendars. There's the line and there's the line and there. There it goes. These lines are just carved into the stone. And this is also carved in stone. In ancient times, time was reckoned from the creation of the world. This means that people knew the starting date and did calculations. And for the conventionality of calculation they invented the calendar, which was used with slight changes throughout the ancient world. In ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, China, Siberia, the Mayans. The whole of the ancient world at that time. Such calculation was tied to a certain ruler. That is, it was said in such, that year of reign of the king. Another thing I had to discover on this rock. Something, which is very interesting, resembles in its outlines the ancient Sumerian text. Pay attention to these lines. They look like this ancient Sumerian tablet with text. The answer is obvious. The first people who came to Scotland were the people who travelled around the world after the collapse of the Tower of Babel in Mesopotamia. And that means they brought with them the old Babylonian calendar and the old Sumerian alphabet. And with the texts of this old Sumerian alphabet, they inscribed their history on this rock at Ahnabrek. If this rock were cleared, I am sure that more calendars and more ancient texts would be revealed to our attention. Here on this neighboring hill we see nothing less than the ruins of an ancient fortification. Of the ancient period. You can see a lot of stones and the remains of a wall. Yes, this was the site of a fortress city. This fortress had an excellent location. It overlooked 2 bays. A unique location for the priests and rulers of the area. According to our preliminary calculations, from the sea bays to Ahnabrek and Kilmartin, there was a large ancient settlement which could probably have had about 100,000 or more settlers. It was a kind of capital of a kingdom, situated in this valley. That there was a large settlement here is evidenced by many artifacts. Stone mounds, burials at Kilmartin, remains of a hill fort and drawings on stone. So, we'll come back to the drawings. We're assuming they're calendars. And as we said, why are there so many of them? And we're sure that some of them are covered in grass. Such a multitude of calendars is necessary in order to mark on the calendar with conventional signs, lines, and indentations the dates, the importance of events in the history of the people who lived here. Perhaps it is wars, birth or death of rulers or other events. And also the priests, who lived in the fortress on this hill, kept these secrets, made chronological marks on stone calendars. But since people may have lived here for 1,000 years or more, they needed more calendars for a certain period of time. Because if one calendar is dotted with marks about events, everything can merge into one incomprehensible hollow and mix up, it will read. That is why a large number of calendars for each certain period of time was needed. The seasons were also marked on these calendars, and the priests, according to the position of the sun, moon, and stars, announced to the people what to do and when to do it, as in farming, war, trade, traveling, and even conceiving children. Now we are back in Kilmartin, a most unique one. I have long noticed these standing stones, and it has been of great interest to me why they stand for so long and do not fall, how deep they are set. Indeed, it is a mystery. Look at these 2 stones, how clearly symmetrical they stand. I wondered for a long time what that meant, a clear symmetry in distance, depicting an ellipse when viewed from flight. And a spell came. It's nothing less than a representation of the motion of the planet Earth around the Sun. It's a sort of temple of the Sun and the Earth. Observing the way this ellipse is laid out, we can say that here is nothing but a depiction of the solar system. For the southern gate of the stones is placed according to the ellipse. The altar is also laid out. These stones also stand unfolded according to the ellipse. And the northern gate, the northern stones are also set according to the ellipse. That is, everything here confirms the ellipse. We have no other doubt, as only to consider that here the solar system of movement of the Earth in a circle of the Sun is represented. I set the compass at the altar of the center stone. And the arrow of the compass did not point to the center between the northern stones, but deviated about 12 degrees to the west. That's natural. It was pointing to the magnetic pole of the Earth. And it is known that magnetic and geographical poles do not coincide with each other. I've seen similar deviations in Lead district. And in Kilmartin. Because the Earth's magnetic pole is always changing. And not always the geographical North Pole pointed to the polar star. In the history of planet Earth, The North Pole has also pointed to other stars in the Milky Way galaxy, where we are. The Sun is marked with a stone in the middle. Around it, the Earth orbits in an elliptical orbit. 2 stones on one side indicate the vernal equinox, and the other 2 for the autumnal equinox. And this was clearly observed by the priests. They celebrated the equinoxes and solstices and told people what to do and when to do it. Why is it believed that the Earth goes round the Sun in an elliptical orbit? Because at the summer and winter solstice the Earth is at its furthest distance from the Sun. From this we can understand that even in those ancient times the priests already had knowledge about the universe, about the influence of the planets of the solar system on the life of man and animals, on his health and on his behavior. By flight and singing of birds, by behavior of animals, it was possible to tell a lot of things. And it was only necessary to listen carefully to all this and observe. Probably, many people remember how in February 2021 in the Suez Canal a tanker sat on the Mel and it was possible to remove it from the Mel only in the Tsar tide. If there is a so-called king tide, then there is a king tide. This is a picture of Landistan Bay. You can see the king tide. So far the water has receded that you can see the stones of the ancient jetty. The royal ebb and flow of the tide occurs at full moon. We know that it is during the full moon, when the light of the sun fully illuminates the surface of the moon facing the earth, that the moon's magnetic field becomes active. And it attracts more water, seas and oceans to it. And there is also bacterial activity on earth. Also other planets of solar system with their magnetic fields have a big influence on life of people, especially when they approach to the Earth and are illuminated by the sun. At this moment their magnetic activity increases, and only speed of flight of the Earth around the sun and gravitation of the sun and other planets does not give the chance to the Earth to leave the orbit and not to fall on the sun, and not to fly. And this knowledge was possessed by the ancient priests. They knew about the influence of the sun and planets on all living things on Earth. And this knowledge was passed on, so to speak, to the initiates or sources. To the chosen ones, that is, to those who sought knowledge themselves. Because the common people didn't need it. And the priests tried to clothe all their knowledge with secrecy, which could be understood only by the chosen ones. And that's how they controlled people's minds. And on top of that, to give importance to their authority, they still performed all kinds of rituals, festivals, sacrifices and many other things. As much as they could. And that's how they profited from the ignorant. That's why there have always been castes of priests, chosen and enlightened. That's the way it's always been with all peoples. We are in one of the sacred places of Leith district. This is one of the best preserved temple buildings of antiquity, where the ruins of an ancient pagan temple, sanctuary have been preserved. In the eastern part of this temple there was a special room, something like an altar for priests. At the beginning of service the priest from the east side of a temple went into the center of a temple and announced will of gods to people and brought sacrifices. In all ancient sanctuaries the door of the priest faced east. At the eastern passage to the temple the priest met the sunrise and the will of the sun god announced to people. It is an interesting fact that the Christian temples of the Middle Ages and earlier were built with the altar facing east, and some of them were built on the site of ancient pagan temples. lived almost exactly as we do. They were born, died, loved, hated, built, destroyed, fought, made peace. For 4,000 to 5,000 years, not much has survived to this day. Drawings on stone, remains of walls, some ruins. A lot of people scattered to build houses, castles, fences. The ancient inhabitants could not imagine that after millennia someone would climb this rock and be transported in time and space to their lives, to understand them, to plunge into their world, into the world of their suffering and love. Knowing this, they may have put up more reminders of themselves. Perhaps someone, many thousands of years in the future, will come to this rock or another and, seeing the artifacts of our modernity, will be transported through time and space to our modern world in which we live. But I am sure that we will probably leave more useful, good, interesting things for future generations, for those who will come after us, than our ancestors left us, if we destroy less.